It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Hi, thank you for being here this morning, as always. All right, here we go. Declassified information, Russia collusion hoax, the evidence coming out that it was a hoax, that everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew, and they've got the emails showing that everybody knew what was going on. And then I found this, because I look back and I say, what else gives credibility? What else in the past? One of the things that you've said is, you know, we covered this for so long. You and I both remember coming in the morning of January 2nd, 2017. Mm-hmm. There are just some days, and we mentioned this on our 20th anniversary, there are just some days you don't forget. It was a great vacation, and over vacation, both you and I started hearing Trump colluded with the Russians. And we came in on January 2nd and went, where the hell's that coming from? Where's the evidence of it? Right. And then, boom, wow, that was 2017.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, no, man. And so we now know with the emails and things that have been released, what we know is, and this comes from Senator Grassley, the FBI knew the Russia collusion hoax arose from the Clinton campaign, and they ignored the key intel to cover it up. The Clinton campaign plan was to use or properly coordinate with the Obama FBI to accelerate the narrative and then leak it to U.S. press outlets, which, again, that right there, which with the audio cut that we played earlier from 2017 with Comey talking to George Stephanopoulos, when he said, well, you didn't tell him that this information came from the opposition, from the Hillary campaign? He goes, well, from my point, I didn't see any need to. We just told him generally the information we had, even though the information they had came from the dossier, which they knew was bogus at the time. But we now know. Now we have more supporting evidence besides Comey saying it.
Yeah.
The Clinton campaign plan was to use or possibly coordinate with the Obama FBI to accelerate the narrative and leak it to the U.S. press outlets. So when Comey met with Trump, telling him, knowing that what was out there, they had no evidence whether it was the truth or not, and telling him what was out there on him without telling him that it came from the opposition, that was leaked to the press. That's all covered in that second part right there. The FBI placed thousands of relevant documents in burn bags for destruction, but Kash Patel found them in a secret room at the FBI, which we had asked the question, why didn't they destroy it? And then the next question comes up, maybe the person who they told to destroy it didn't destroy it because they didn't want that. He didn't want possible charges coming back at him.
And or maybe somebody that was at the level of being responsible for destroying it looked at it and said, there needs to be a chance that this is found.
Yeah. Yeah. One of two things. I don't want to be prosecuted.
Usually it's CYA. But there could also be, because remember the two agents, remember on the whole white paper thing, the two FBI agents that said, whoever wrote this white paper is bat soup crazy?
Yeah.
And management was like, oh, that's not for you to decide. FBI upper brass was like, no. We'll take it from here.
Yeah.
So I think within the ranks, there were probably some people who knew about a couple of things and said to themselves, you know what, I'm not going to be a part of that. And maybe the truth will come out one day.
The next point, Hillary Clinton approved of that plan to concoct a Donald Trump colluding with the Russia narrative in order to distract the public from her use of the private email server. The original DNI report from late 2016 rightly said Russia did not favor Trump and did not work to elect Trump. They even held back from the public damning intelligence on Hillary. Obama nevertheless ordered a new report to be created that tied Trump to Russia. On Obama's direction, Brennan and Clapper manufactured intelligence, that could be a crime, and included the Hillary Clinton paid for Steele dossier in the new report, despite warnings from CIA analysts that it was untrustworthy. Now, I want to add this to it. I just happened to come upon this as we were doing research on all of this here. And I just went, whoa, this really adds to everything. And I had forgotten about this.
Okay.
And you keep telling me there's so much out there. You know, there's so much. Well, we've covered. There's so many tentacles out there that every time you cover something, you realize, oh, my gosh, I missed this. You can add this to it. This from October 14, 2022, CNN. I mean, once I saw it, it popped back in my mind. The FBI offered Christopher Steele $1 million to prove the dossier claims. Senior FBI analyst testifies. Shortly before the 2016 election, the FBI offered retired British spy Christopher Steele up to $1 million to prove the explosive allegations in his dossier about Donald Trump. The cash offer was made during an overseas 2016 meeting between Steele and several top FBI officials who were trying to corroborate Steele's claims that the Trump campaign was colluding with Russia to win the election. The FBI supervisory analyst, Brian Oughton, testified that Steele never got the money because he could not prove the allegations. Oughton also said Steele refused to provide any names of any of his sources during that meeting. And he didn't give the FBI anything, any evidence that showed that the claims in the dossier were legit. So it shows you how much the FBI wanted. It sets up another intent. They were willing to pay Hillary Clinton already had paid, they all got paid throughout it. What did Steele get paid? $160,000 or something like that, I think it was, what he ended up getting in the long run.
Right.
So she paid him.
Right.
He gave then the FBI says, okay, they don't threaten him with any type, of criminal charges. They say, we'll give you $1 million in taxpayer dollars if you can verify these claims. So they knew that meant he didn't attempt to verify the claims with Hillary, that Hillary didn't attempt to verify the claims. The FBI didn't attempt to clarify the claims. The FISA court didn't attempt to verify the claims in the dossier. Nobody attempted to verify any of the claims.
Well, and remember what Bruce Orr basically in August of 2016. Now, this is according to Bruce Orr's own testimony on Capitol Hill in 2018. He said that in August of 2016, now he was a fairly high-level DOJ employee, Bruce Orr. It's important because his wife, Nellie Orr, worked for Fusion GPS.
Right. And just so people know, Hillary gave the money to Perkins Coie. Perkins Coie was the law firm. That's where she got caught in the big lie, giving them the campaign money and saying it was for legal fees,
right,
when it was not. And then they took the money, some of the money, and gave it to Fusion GPS. Fusion GPS was the opposition research group that hired Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele, from what I know, hired Iggy Danchenko, who helped create the both of them, created the false dossier,
right,
and were paid money to do so.
And so, along the way, Bruce Orr at the DOJ tells Peter Strzok, at the FBI. I don't trust this dossier. I don't trust what's in it. It looks biased. And so you guys would have to work to verify this information. That was kind of a red flag at that point that Bruce Orr was setting up as a fairly high-level DOJ employee that was telling the FBI that, including Peter Strzok, in August of 2016. Now, with all this that has been released in recent days, you put it all together. This is proof they knew what was going on and why, and they kept it going. After Trump won, after he was inaugurated and was in office, they continued it with Robert Mueller.
Mm-hmm. I remember you and I'd said it a number of times, and then the day before the Mueller report was coming out, we said, here's how you know it's completely bogus, and here's the evidence that that they know that Trump had nothing to do with Russia collusion.
Right.
And it's very easy. And that would be if you were an investigator and you had a clean slate. None of what I'm saying here is political or partisan at all. It's simply how you do an investigation. If you hired Red Eye Radio to investigate Trump, because, we'll do anything for money. And they came to and said, here's $10 million. No. We're going to give you $1 million. Let's use the incentive. Let's use capitalism here. We'll give you your regular wage that you make on the radio, $7.25 an hour, which is a minimum wage in Texas. And if you can find how Trump colluded with Russia, we'll give you a $10 million bonus. What's the first thing we would have done? And we approach it with the clean slate. We need to find out whether this guy colluded with the Russians. Where would we have found the best evidence? Where would have been the first thing that any investigator would have gone to say, well, the best evidence has to be here? It would have been to look at the FISA warrant.
Yeah.
And see what the dossier contained, and then you follow the dossier back. You would go, though, to the FISA warrant. That's where you would go for the evidence.
Because the basis of that particular application being approved and that warrant being issued is that it had changed. The first application for that warrant on Carter Page was denied. The second one was approved and was granted, and the warrant was issued, and the only difference between those two is the dossier. That's why it's key. That's why the dossier is key in that FISA warrant process.
And I think we got on the case of Republicans for not asking that question.
Right. Because it just boggled the mind.
Yeah, we're just the two idiots overnight. That's where you'd go to find it. Why didn't you go down that? And we know why they didn't go down that path.
Right.
Because they knew what that path was going to lead to them. They knew where that path was going to lead. They didn't go down it because it would have said, oh, what happened if you would have gone through the entire dossier and got back to the original in the beginning? You would have found that, could you imagine Mueller coming out and saying, well, Trump is actually completely innocent. Hillary set him up. Well, Obama was involved. Brennan was involved. It would have completely blown it to shreds. That's how we knew that the Mueller investigation was completely bogus, because that's where you would have gone.
Yep.
The first place you would have gone to get the best evidence against Trump would have been the FISA warrant, but that would have led you to the truth, which was Hillary, Obama, Brennan, Clapper, the people that hired you, the party that in essence hired you, were actually the guilty parties.
Well, here's a quote from Bruce Orr in 2018 talking about 2016. He said, when I provided the Steele information, that being the dossier, to the FBI, I tried to be clear that this is the source of the information, that Hillary. is the source. The Clinton camp is the source of the information. I don't know how reliable it is. You're going to have to check it out and be aware. These guys were hired by somebody who's related to the Clinton campaign, and be aware. He was telling them then. And not only did he went to Andrew McCabe, he also went to Peter Strzok at the FBI. That was in August of 2016, early in this. This is Hillary doing this. You've got to consider that. Very few people reported that story. It stuck in my mind because we followed everything along the way. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Bruce Orr testified in 2018, and that's when, in fact, that quote is from that testimony. He said in August of 2016, I was trying to tell them, this doesn't look right. This looks biased. It's coming from Hillary. You should be aware of that. Which, of course, now we know they were well aware of it by August. They knew it was happening.
Mm-hmm. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howe's Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
Coming up next week, National Farmers Market Week. And
the National Farmers Market Week extravaganza.
As Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins refers to the Great American Farmers Market, starting this Sunday on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Among the featured items,
produce and products from all over the country by some of our greatest farmers.
Among the over 50 vendors participating each evening, representing 28 states. Themes are associated with each day of the August 3rd through 8th celebration. Among those participating, various federal officials and even a celebrity or more.
Smokey Bear is apparently going to be making an appearance as well.
Opening of the Great American Farmers Market occurs this Sunday, with the event open each day from 4 to 8 p.m. Eastern. Additional details about the Great American Farmers Market are available online at www.usda.gov/GAFM. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I want to play this audio cut here from Caroline Leavitt yesterday at the White House talking to the media about the Russia collusion hoax story.
Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then-candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
You know, one of the questions was, well, how do you know they're declassifying it? The top secret information doesn't come out. It's interesting that they had that question. My question was, why was anything that came out yesterday ever top secret to begin with?
Yeah, what warrants that being top secret? Where is the where's the threat of exposing sources or anything like that, or it being any kind of national security threat? Where is that?
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when you want. All right, so it's been an insane week. You know, you look at the Sydney Sweeney ad, and we'll get to some comment on that in just a minute here, and just how absolutely insane that is. I mean, just was crazy. In fact, initially, I didn't care about the topic until the Democrats just kept doubling and tripling down on their insanity analysis on it. But not only that, one of the things that happened here in the last week, you had Rahm Emanuel come out and say that men cannot become women. Who else? You had it was Rahm Emanuel. Did somebody else also come out and say it this week? Another Democrat. Or was it the Rahm Emanuel? I'm thinking of earlier this week.
Yeah, I think
okay,
it was
Rahm Emanuel. Okay, and then you had Gavin Newsom come out earlier and say he thinks it's unfair. Listen to this discussion. This is Representative Sarah McBride being asked a question about, you know, basically should the Democratic Party change on some of these issues. Here we go.
I think you are kind of seeing an attempt to course correct from some prominent Democrats. Like Rahm Emanuel was recently asked by Megyn Kelly whether a man could become a woman, and he said no. Gavin Newsom recently said that he believes transgender athletes shouldn't compete in women's sports. Do you worry about an overcorrection here?
I do believe that those statements have been overcorrections, yes. But I also believe that and look, I don't want to also question the authenticity. I mean, I don't know the motivations for some of those comments. I don't want to question the authenticity of those beliefs. If those are their authentic beliefs, you know, people can have a conversation.
All right. All right.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, because honestly...
And by the way, he is a transgender. Sarah McBride is transgender, just so you know, Representative McBride.
Right. There's not going to be any change except for the fact that it's going to be accelerated by the Democrats. The Rahm Emanuels of the world are not going to be big players because of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know how I know Kamala Harris isn't going to run in 28? Because in the list of public servants that she holds a great deal of respect for on Colbert last night, it was teachers, nurses, doctors, police.
Oh, that's right. She can't do that. Yeah.
She's out.
Yeah, she's out. Can't do that.
So it's... Plus, and by the way, the point she was making that I don't believe she had a debate with her family on serving in law enforcement. I think she's addressing the debate about her serving in law enforcement prior to that. And I think she's probably realized she can't win because the left is not going to support her in that regard. The whole, defund the police, defund ICE, all of that, it's back. It's kind of right now focused on ICE. But it is in full play on the left. And so none of these marginal players, and I consider the former vice president a marginal player at best, they're not going to be heard by the radicals, and they don't want to. The radicals want nothing to do with it. A lot of this goes back to the recent article we had from Axios. 9 members of Congress, 8 of whom could not even give their names. They didn't feel safe giving their names because they said their constituents were showing up at local meetings and they want blood. They want them to be even more radical. Well, my gosh, we're talking 28, and that election is over 3 years away. How much more radical is it going to get? I can't measure that, but I know it will get more radical.
Yeah, understand that, and we keep emphasizing it. Democratic members of Congress are afraid of the people that voted them in office.
Yeah. And when
They're
you
so
see that,
afraid.
I don't know who would want to be
Right.
in the political realm on the left unless you're a radical yourself.
So now we go to Laura Ingraham interviewing Dr. Drew on the whole Sydney Sweeney thing. Here we go.
This has got to be the craziest thing ever of many crazy things, but now we're attacking women for being conservative, thin, and healthy. That's a real winning message.
It's super. Listen, I did not know that my practice was very white. I was involved with helping people with health for the last 40 years. I didn't realize that had a racial tone to it. I better tell my patients pretty quickly. But the reality is it started with the reality reasserting itself. Men like looking at Sydney Sweeney. They like buying her products. Women like looking at her. They want to be able to look like her in some fashion. They'll buy the products. That's how people work. They like looking at things. They like watching movies they like watching. We're stopping pretending that we like things that we don't like. Reality is reasserting itself. And let's be clear, this commercial was a joke. It's a play on the word jeans. So you can't even take the joke, and the idea that wellness and thinness somehow has to be something people feel guilty about or avoid is really kind of a bizarre concept, isn't it?
Duh. Well, yeah. And then there's the headline: the left wants you to be obese. Yeah, the whole point is being thin and healthy is in autonomy, individuality, being healthy, and being thin is white supremacy.
Right.
I mean, it's now this all comes to conclusion here for this week. With another Roy Teixeira article, Democrats should give up on the Resistance 2.0. He runs the Liberal Patriot. A couple of years ago, Roy was working for a liberal think tank and had to get out. They wouldn't accept him because he was saying the Democratic Party has to change. They didn't want to hear it.
Right.
I forgot which one it was, but a conservative think tank hired him immediately. And he said, conservatives want to hear all opinions.
Sure.
And as we said, we want to hear. I want to play Kamala Harris to hear her word salad.
Oh, yeah.
I want to hear the insanity of the Democrats because that's my evidence. My evidence that they are supporting insane issues are them speaking about supporting insane issues.
Yep.
And so we haven't said this in a while, Democrats make our argument for us all the time.
Yep.
But Roy, started writing columns, Liberal Patriots, saying, we got to do something, and you can't continue going down the road that you're going. He said, nothing feels better than unloading with both barrels on Donald Trump, and few things are less effective or more boring. Is there anyone in this country who does not know that Democrats disapprove of everything Donald Trump does, believes he's a danger to democracy, and just really, really hate the guy? I don't think so. And yet Democrats keep rendering their garments and screaming their hatred to the heavens. The latest example was Cory Booker this week. And he went through the whole thing. Democrat needs a wake-up call. We can't cooperate with Trump in any way. And then Roy writes, how thrilling he wants to fight. Cue the applause from the Democratic activist who can never get enough of this stuff. But to what avail? Famously, it failed to stop Trump from winning the 2024 election. And so far, nonstop Democratic fury in Trump's second term have been notably unsuccessful in resuscitating the party's toxic brand. The recent Wall Street Journal poll found the Democratic Party favorability is 30 points underwater. 30 points underwater, the worst in 35 years, ratings for both Trump and the GOP are much higher. And voters, despite their negative views of Trump, still prefer Republicans to Democrats on these issues. And they bring up the Wall Street Journal poll: illegal immigration plus 24, immigration plus 17, the economy plus 12, inflation and rising prices plus 10, foreign policy plus 8. This shouldn't be much of a mystery. Voters are taking Joe Biden's advice and applying it to the Democratic Party. Don't compare me to the almighty. Compare me to the alternative. Well, voters are doing just that, comparing Democrats to the alternative. And Democrats are coming out on the short end of the comparison. Voters evidently believe whatever the problems with the Trump and GOP approach on these issues, Democrats are unlikely to do much better and conceivably quite a bit worse. In short, voters already get that Democrats hate Trump. They've already priced that in, endlessly reminding voters of the fact and how Trump must be resisted does nothing to change the Democrats' fundamental problem. Voters neither like nor trust them and therefore do not find them an obvious choice over their opponents. Well, if that's true, why do so many Democratic politicians persist in reading loudly from the resistance script? Wouldn't they be better off as a party if they concentrated on winning voters away from their doubts about the Democrats, convincing them, say, that the Democrats actually are a culturally moderate party that believes in working class abundance? They would. The problem is that the resistance trope is what advantages individual Democratic politicians within their own party because it generates adulation from activists, media coverage, and gushers of donations.
Yeah.
This contradiction between the interests of the party as a whole and the interest of individual politicians is a tragedy of commons that is not easily solved.
I've been saying this for a while. I think really it was the rise of AOC. I think that was the best example. But now you see it with Jasmine Crockett. They're only in it for their own profile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
They're building out their own profile. I'd say MTG fits that category too.
On the Republican side.
On the Republican side.
Right.
But on the left, they really only want to build their own profile. You know, I guess you could say for MTG, at least it's on actual issues. But still, you look at that, and it really is about the individual. And I think that is really the problem for the Democrats. Because I said yesterday, well, David Hogg, I think, probably confirmed recently with that whole thing and his fallout and separation from the DNC. He probably looks at that and says, no, that's confirmation that I don't need the party. We don't need the party. These radicals don't feel like they need the party. There's enough of them to get it done. Now, logistically, they're going to need the party. The question, will the party come along? Because this is about the individual, and each of them are the boss. Well, you can't all be the boss.
What I would disagree with Mr. Teixeira's where he said, why can't the Democrats say that they're a moderate party that cares about working people?
Because they're not.
Thank you. Why are you answering my questions? You're answering my questions,
Right.
and you're answering them 100% correctly.
Exactly.
Because they're not.
They're not.
I mean, you've got
they won't ever be again.
Right, and you've got to talk about that problem.
Yep.
866-98 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We are Red Eye Radio. And again, another headline in the Babylon Bee that, again, is not really parody. And it's based on this week, and there's been so much talk, even from Democrats, Republicans. Where's the Democratic Party going to go? Mamdani promoting communism, his popularity. He would wipe off. You could run all the different candidates. He would still win by a huge margin. He has more popularity than anybody else running in New York City. Democrats are becoming, if not communist, communist pinkos, which means communist sympathizers, and everything else going on right now with Gaza, the American Eagle ad, and they came out with the Democrats' campaign slogan for 2028. We hate capitalism, hot chicks, and Jews.
Exactly. That's the Babylon Bee. By the way, that's they need to be careful that Democrats actually may use that. That actually could be the case.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.